We're now just hours away from Celtic being presented with the Scottish Premiership Trophy for a record 55th time in what's set to be another special day at Celtic Park. Sadly, though, we'll have to do it without Reo Hatate, with Brendan Rodgers confirming that the Japanese midfielder will now miss the end of the season following a pretty cheap tackle towards the end of the game at Pittodrie on Wednesday night. So a real blow for Reo Hatate, blow for his teammates, and blow for the fans as well. He's the one ever present, or he had been the one ever present this season, featured in 55 of Celtic's games so far, but he will now miss those final two games. So that is a blow. However, still set to be a really special day as Celtic get set to take on St Mirren. And it's a lunchtime kick-off, 12:30. This is Tino bringing you the countdown to kick-off ahead of that one. And there's lots to look at, lots of different subplots, lots going on going into this game. To help us do so, let's take a quick look back, actually, at what unfolded at Pittodrie on Wednesday night. As I say, real tough one for Rio, picking up that injury towards the end, but it was an exciting and enjoyable game. The manager made a number of changes, and he freshened it up. He's obviously looking to keep his squad ticking along going into tomorrow and the Scottish Cup final next weekend, of course. And he mixed up the pack quite notably. I don't think there's many folk out there that would have predicted he's starting 11 on the day. Guys like Mike Nawrocki come in. Sean McArdle getting more minutes, which was great, and we'll talk more about Sean McArdle a bit later on. Yang plays, James Forrest starts, Luke McCowan, and so on and so forth. Sinisalo back in goals. And despite the many changes, there was certainly no change in the end product. It was really slick. I thought Celtic were excellent, actually. Just lots to enjoy on the night, some great goals, and a real boost. I'll need to do the maths. I should have done the maths before I came on, but Celtic have scored a lot of goals against Aberdeen this season, including 6-0 semi-final at Hampden and various other big scorelines into the mix. And that is a tall order for Aberdeen heading into the cup final next week. Cup finals are different, of course. Anything can happen on the day over 90 minutes, but Celtic will be overwhelming favourites and rightfully so. It remains to be seen what changes and how Brendan Rodgers approaches this one tomorrow. You could debate that certain players have played their way in. I would argue for Yang, of course I would. I always do. Others will maintain that James Forrest should start and he's chasing that goal record. Mike Nawrocki, there's a real genuine split in the camp on Mike Nawrocki. I'm just going to stick with my position at the moment that I think he's a good defender, a really good professional. Brendan Rodgers has always spoken really well of him. But is he good enough going forward? Is he good enough on the ball to take us to where we want to be? And I would argue there's only one player in Celtic's defence, or Celtic's central defence, that is good enough, and it's Cameron Carter-Vickers. I don't think Scales or Trusty or Mike Nawrocki can take us where we want to go in Europe. And I think you could debate that Nawrocki and the others mentioned there could provide backup, and of course you will always need your backup and your squad players, but whether they're good enough to be the man, I'm not so sure. Let us know what you think in the comments. I know there's lots of folk who really do like what he's put in recent times, but I'm just not sure he's the man for us going forward. Hey, what? Let's take a look at what we think the manager will go with then. So, in goals, I think it's quite clear that Kasper Schmeichel will return. He made his comeback last week and first and foremost came through the game unscathed, and that was the most important element there. But beyond that, I think he is the cup final goalie. He is the number one, and he was put out for press duty as well, which doesn't always tell you the guy's going to start, but it often leans towards that. And Kasper Schmeichel was talking about the fact that he's won a Premier League before. He knows what it takes to win a league title. And it was interesting to hear his comments. He speaks very well, very experienced guy. I think he's approaching 120 caps there or thereabouts for Denmark. Been around the block and then some, but obviously in this new lease of life here at Celtic. And he was saying that out with the obvious talent and requirements on that level that you need to win a league title, hard work and a good group is the cornerstone of any such success. And he was talking about the comparisons between the group that he had at Leicester when he won the title there and this group that are now at Celtic. And he said hard work, and the players see this in all the metrics. They're all kind of measured in terms of the distances covered and various different stats. And he says, to quote him, Celtic work harder than anyone else, and that's why they've won the title. And that's a fair comment, and this is something that we as fans don't always see. Yes, we see clips of training at Lennoxtown and guys going through the motions there and going through wee drills, but it is clips. It's, stage managed almost. You get maybe kind of 10, 15 minutes here and there, and that's heavily edited down. What you don't see is the real miles and genuine hard work that these players put in. And also, you hear folks talking about guys like James Forrest, how well they eat, how well they look after themselves off the park. And it does take real dedication, and you don't ever win a title by chance. Sometimes teams can get lucky, maybe in a cup run and one-off games. You don't win titles over 38 games by chance. And I think Kasper Schmeichel was keen to highlight that because he'll have probably been surprised at some of the people looking to downplay Celtic's success. You'll always get it. It's just part of things here, whether it's the media itself or the fans of different clubs, always looking to downplay any such achievement. But you don't win a title, a fourth successive title, a 55th title in Celtic's history, 120 trophies it'll be, 121 if we're able to lift the Scottish Cup next week. These things don't happen by chance. You don't get those successes by luck. And I think Kasper Schmeichel was quite keen to point that out. So I do think Kasper Schmeichel starts in goals, and rightfully so. I don't think Sinisalo has done a thing wrong, and I think he can be pleased with what he's put in so far. And it does seem and feel there's a long-term plan for him to be the number one moving forward. And I think we're all quite comfy with that. I think he done really well, and he's also shown a lot of character. He himself spoke well in the last couple of weeks. He was asked about, his experience at Ibrox, including the missiles getting thrown and all these things. And he just bounced it off like a real seasoned pro. I think he's got a really mature head on young shoulders. I think he's only 23 years of age. And I think right now, Celtic's goalkeeping position is one area where we've got genuinely no worries at this moment in time. There's chat about who the number 3 might be moving forward. Scott Bain's been here a long time. I think maybe since 2016, 17, something like that. But it might be Ross Doohan, former Celtic goalkeeper who's currently at Aberdeen, that might find himself back here. Who knows? But that aside, I think in terms of our number 1 and number 2 goalie, we're in a really strong position. So that's a great sign of where we're at. In terms of who'll play in front of him, I generally think that what we're going to see tomorrow will be a dress rehearsal for the cup final in terms of the lineup. I think the manager will go with his strongest team, and as I say, very unfortunately, that won't include Rio Hatate now, a player who's really picked up form recently. 55 games for the season so far. He was the only player in the squad to have played in every single game, and it's so unfortunate that Rio misses out, but it's the way football can go. I hope the player himself is not too despondent. We've not heard from him. I don't know if he's posted anything on socials, but I hope he's in good spirits. I hope he's at Celtic Park as well to enjoy the success, because it's down to guys like Rio Hatate as much as anybody else. In terms of the back four, so I think Alistair Johnson, who did make his return from injury in midweek, he will come back in. And Tony Ralston's been good. He's provided good cover and done himself no harm at all. But Alistair Johnson is our number 1 right back, and he'll come in. Greg Taylor, currently our number 1 choice left back, will play at left back, but I think it's his last game at Celtic Park. I think he moves on. Or maybe others, for different reasons, it'll move on. I just think this one's rumbled on for different reasons. And again, I just don't think Greg Taylor is of the required quality to take us forward in Europe. Same as Scales, same as Trusty, same as Nawrocki. Good, hard-working, committed, honest pros who have done very well at different times in their Celtic careers. Greg Taylor's picked up, I think, 11 trophies. Will possibly be 12 next week. But I think he moves on. That's my feeling on it. We'll see. We'll watch this space and see if there's any change. So Greg Taylor would start at left back for me. Cameron Carter-Vickers is back from, I'm saying injury. I think he was just rested. I think the manager's just been clever with him. I think he does come back in. And I think it's Liam Scales that partners him. And people will debate about Nawrocki and why would he not get a game. He might get a game, but I think Scales and Trusted are the more natural left-siders. And I think just for that balance, that's why Mike Nawrocki has missed out. It's a tall order to play second fiddle to Cameron Carter-Vickers. And the bottom line is, if he's fit, he plays. And I think that's just the way of it. He's the best central defender at the club. And Mike Nawrocki, being a right footer, just finds himself behind him. And I think that's the reason that Scales or Trusty would get the nod tomorrow. But I do think it's Liam Scales, and that's the way that'll go. The midfield three, it almost always contains Callum McGregor, and rightly so. He's the club captain. He's a driving force. He's the real metronome of this Celtic side. And people were saying, why did we not rest him during the week? There was so many changes. I think there was 8 changes at Pittodrie. Why not rest Callum McGregor? I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that Callum McGregor doesn't want to be rested and doesn't feel the need to be rested. And I think sometimes you should maybe take those decisions out of the players' hands, but also Callum McGregor's a guy who, at times, we've seen can take a wee bit of time to get back up to speed. And I think on that basis, he just wants to remain in there and tick along and get his minutes against Aberdeen. Did he get an hour or so before coming off? And then he'll play tomorrow, and that should have him in good stead for the cup final a week down the track. So Callum McGregor comes in. Arnie Engels will remain, and say what you want, and people do say a lot. It's a brilliant season for Arnie Engels for a young player moving to Scotland, turned 21 during this campaign. He's got something like, is it 10 goals, a dozen assists, give or take. Featured for Belgium for the first time this season. Lots of positives about Arnie Engels. Lots of real genuine excitement as to what Arnie Engels will look like moving forward into next season. But this season alone, it's been a really good campaign for him. He should start tomorrow, and he should start the cup final, and I think he will start both. The gap, of course, has been left by Rio, and there's two guys I think will be competing for that. It's Luke McCowan and it's Paulo Bernardo. And again, it depends what fan you speak to as to who people favour to come in that position. My own preference would be Bernardo, who again, I find myself repeating this line that he hasn't done much wrong, and you could apply that to a number of players. You could actually apply that to both of those players. Now, Luke McCowan, there was a bit of a dip. I chatted about it with Greg when we done the post-match on Wednesday night. Luke McCowan did have a bit of a dip after Ibrox. Callum McGregor was injured. Luke McCowan got the nod. And like a lot of his teammates, to be fair, didn't quite cover himself in glory, but he also seemed to take a bit of time to recover from that. It just seemed to set him back a wee bit. And you can look at that in a couple of ways. It's not great, at face value, but actually it could be a really positive and really essential learning curve for a guy like Luke McCowan. Luke McCowan will have gone to places like Ibrox before as a Dundee player, for example, where you're not expected to win. Actually, at Dundee, you could debate, are you expected to win any game in terms of the Scottish Premiership, or are you favourites to win any game? Probably not is the answer, unless you're bouncing around with the other sides down near the bottom. And I think having gone from that world into what Celtic is, as much as he knows the expectations at Celtic, given that he's a boyhood Celtic fan, one thing knowing that, the other thing is applying that and realising that there's so much pressure every single minute you get for Celtic. I think it's been a really important year for Luke McCowan, and he's at a different age and stage of his career than someone like Arnie Engels. McCowan's 27, I think, at this moment in time, so not the top end of his career, but getting into those more mature years. But I think even though he's not a kid anymore, I think it's been such an important development year, if that's the right term. And I think he, like many others, like Engels, like Bernardo, like Adam Ida, like Yang, these guys will all be better again getting into next season. And I think that's the exciting part. Celtic at the moment are sweeping the boards domestically. We've seen genuine progress in Europe. And if we manage to hold on to the core of this side and add other bits of quality and develop the players that are currently there, there's so much to be excited about. And I think this team can really kick on under Brendan Rodgers. That's obviously a bigger picture thing, beyond tomorrow's game against St Mirren. But as I say, lots of excitement, lots to look forward to, and we'll certainly focus on that across the summer and then some. But I do think Bernardo will get the nod from the point of view that I think he is the player that Brendan Rodgers would turn to for the cup final. He's not had many minutes in recent times since coming back from injury just a few weeks ago. They'll be looking to get him up to speed as best as possible. And obviously Arnie Engels Paulo Bernardo has really fond memories of Hampden, given that it was he that played such a pivotal role in setting up Adam Ida's winner against Rangers in the 1-0 win around about this time last year. It was such a powerful drive and run from midfield, skipped by Nico Raskan, the best player the world has ever seen apparently, as if he wasn't there. Bounced him off, strode forward, unleashed the shot. Jack Butland can't hold it, and Adam Ida tucks it in, and it's 1-0 Celtic, and we're good to go Scottish Cup-wise. And Paulo Bernardo, as I say, will have been boosted by that at the time, but unfortunately he's not been able to kick on in the way that he would have hoped. This is a chance for him to have a real strong end to the season. Had Rio been fit, Rio plays. That's just the bottom line. Brendan Rodgers clearly trusts him, and 55 appearances tells you that. It would have been 57. But this is how football goes. You call it sliding doors moments, whatever you want to say, but different things can happen to create different opportunities for different players. And I think Paulo Bernardo will be the one to benefit from this time around. So for me, the midfield three will be Callum McGregor, it will be Arnie Engels, and it will be Paulo Bernardo. But that doesn't mean that Luke McCowan doesn't have a part to play tomorrow and Scottish Cup final day. So let's see what the manager goes with. Up top, he has got options, and they're obviously diminished slightly by the loss of Jota. There's no doubt about that, and that's another serious talent that would have featured. But we are where we are, and what we've got at this moment in time is James Forrest peaking at the perfect time. He was so good on Wednesday night, picked up the man of the match. The only thing missing was the goal, inverted commas, that he's so desperately chasing. Most will have seen or heard him speaking post-match where he said that if he gets it, he gets it, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. He'll make his peace with it. But there is no doubt that he wants to get it. He's a winner, and he's just a really driven and focused character. And I think we're all desperate to see him take the goal. You'll have seen various posts on social media saying that James must start every minute, and he's taking the penalties and the free kicks and the bye kicks and the throw, anything that can lead towards Celtic getting a James Forrest goal. However, I don't think he starts tomorrow. I don't think the manager will go with it. The thing about Brendan Rodgers, and I know he's a huge James Forrest fan, he also doesn't do, what's the word? Not basically, he's ruthless when he needs to be. He'll pick the team that he feels is best suited to winning this St Mirren game. First and foremost, sentimentality is the word I was looking for. He knows how important this goal would be to James Forrest, but he spoke, I watched the press conference, as much as they're all looking forward to Trophy Day and the fanfare and the enjoyment and the celebration that comes with that, there's a game to be won. And that was the focus. And I like that about Celtic. There's this relentless nature about Celtic that, yes, we're winning trophies and we're heading for trebles and we're looking to do this, that, and the next thing. But what is the focus? What is the here and now? And it's always the next game. And at the moment, it's St Mirren and it's the 90 minutes at 12:30 before everything else that goes beyond that. And I think on that note, he would go with his strongest three, which for me right now is Dies and Maeda on the left, Adam Idah through the middle, and it's Nicholas Kuhn on the right-hand side. Now, you could argue Brendan Rodgers also likes to operate a meritocracy, and players should get in on merit. If they play well the week before, then that does ask a question of whether they stay in the team or not. And if it was based purely on that, James Forrest would start. Yang would probably start. Luke McCowan would have a good case. Mike Nawrocki would have a good case. Sinisalo too. Various guys, Tony Ralston. But that's not the way things are going at this moment in time. And I do think the chat, it came out via James Forrest and his post-match on Wednesday. Brendan Rodgers told the team for Pittodrie after the game last Saturday. The players were made aware. We're freshening things up. We're making some changes. And I think as much as any player that's not starting tomorrow will be disappointed, I think they know that this has been the plan, that he'll make changes for Pittodrie, but he'll also make changes back for St Mirren with half an eye. And I know, as I say, we're only focusing on one game at a time, but there will be a bit of planning with regards to the cup final and getting certain guys certain minutes. So I think on that basis, we're going to see Dies Maeda on the left, Adam Idah through the centre, and Nicholas Kuhn on the right-hand side. And that front three, let me do some quick maths while I'm on. Dies Maeda's on 21 goals for the season. 33 goals for the season. Nicholas Kuhn is on 21. And Adam Idah, I think, is now on 20. So what have we got? 53, 70, 74 goals between that front three, plus whatever Kyogo gave us before he moved on. That is a really effective attacking threat. And Brendan Rodgers' big thing, as he continues to evolve as a manager, is to ensure there's goals all across the park. So we as fans clamour for a number 9 who's going to bang in 30 goals a season, which would be nice. But it's just not the way things are going under this Brendan Rodgers side. And, Adam Idah's taken a bit of flack as well, and some of it justified, some of it not so much. But he still racked up 20 goals, and there's a couple of games to go to add to that. And I think he can be fairly pleased with his contribution. And as I say, I do think he and others improve next season. Dies Maeda, we don't need to say anything about Dies Maeda in terms of what he's brought to the party. He won another trophy of the day, and I'm honestly losing track of the different trophies he's picking up. I think it was the William Hill Player of the Year, in addition to all of Celtic's Player of the Years, and the PFA Player of the Year, and a Writers Player of the Year, and a Glenn's Vodka Player of the Year somewhere. There's all sorts going on, but rightfully so. He's had such an exceptional season. The massive hope, and again, it's a different chat for a different episode, is that he remains a big, big part of what Celtic are doing next season. Seen rumours doing the rounds midweek about Brighton coming in from, and I don't know, don't really care who the side is. The rumours will start, and you can see why teams would be looking at him. But the big hope is you've got a player that's content with life at Celtic Park, and that he remains for at least another few years, and that he signs an extension in the summer. But we'll see. But in the meantime, he's ours, and he should, and I think will start tomorrow. And again, will start the cup final. But what a threat to have him on the left. Nicholas Kuhn looking sharp again on the right hand side. And as I say, Adam Ida through the middle and all those goals that they offer. And it does leave the opportunity for James Forrest to come in potentially later in the game. And fans won't be happy if James Forrest doesn't start. But bizarrely, I think James Forrest would be okay with it. He's a team player. And you actually seen a lot of that on Wednesday night against Aberdeen, actually, where, as I say, anytime he gets the ball, within 40 yards of goal now, everyone's screaming for him to shoot. But I think he himself as a player will always be selfless about it. And if there's a better pass or a better option to a teammate, James Forrest will take that. But I think, disappointed as he would be not to get the nod, I think he'd be okay with it. And if he's then introduced on the 60-minute mark, there's a real opportunity for him to get his goal. For him to get his goal at Celtic Park on Trophy Day would be so fitting. It would be such a nice touch, and it would just seem, with Billy McNeill and others talk about this fairy tale element of Celtic Football Club. That in itself would be another chapter, to tick those boxes if James Forrest were to do so. I think he's also presenting the trophy. I think post-match when the 90 minutes are wrapped up and they bring out the podiums and the fireworks and everything else is going off, I believe it's James Forrest who's coming out to present the trophy to, I suppose, Callum McGregor and the rest of his team. And that in itself will be a really special moment. And let's hope that there's a goal in the locker before all that for it to be a really special day for James Forrest. Other options on the bench then, so that would leave, as I say, Forrest and Yang to come on. And I'm excited about Yang. I'm not going to dwell on it just now, but I do think he's steadily improved and he's shown genuine flashes and flair. And he was really lively, really alert on Wednesday night and got his goal. But he's got improvement to make. But I think he's in a great place to do so under Brendan Rodgers. And as I say, hopefully a strong end to the campaign, absolutely, but a big season for him next year. That would be the plan. Luke McCowan will likely be in the bench, and he's got a part to play. He's got a decent number of goals, some plenty of assists as well. I think is it 7 goals and double figure assists, which is pretty good for a guy you signed for £1 million. And as I say, a lot of learning, a lot of development to be made at Celtic, but he can be proud of his efforts. Others would be Nawrocki would be in the bench. Trusty, I don't know what the future of Trusty or the future holds for Austin Trusty. Jeffrey Schlupp, I think in a less nostalgic way than with Greg Taylor, this will most likely be Jeffrey Schlupp's last appearance at Celtic Park. And good luck to him. He came in and helped us out and supported that left back area at a time we needed cover. And initially I thought he was going to be the man. I thought he came in and looked really good, really lively, really powerful. But Greg Taylor, as he has done with so many players, found himself back in. And credit to Taylor for that. But we know KT's coming back in. Do feel overall there's some strengthening required, and we'll see what the manager does in the summer. Jeffrey Schlupp will find himself on the sidelines, I've no doubt about that. But the other player that we're also excited about all of a sudden, with very little knowledge of him, a week and a half ago, is Sean McArdle. He came in last Saturday and he's shown in moments that he was capable, but wasn't involved too much. And Brendan Rodgers said after the match that guys like Sean McArdle and others will always get the opportunity. Celtic, if you're good enough, you'll be given minutes. But at that point, he said that he wanted these players, these young players, to show some personality, play with some personality. And it feels like Sean McArdle took every ounce of that on board, because that is exactly what he brought to the party on Wednesday night. I need to check in terms of when he came on, maybe 80 minutes, 81st minute, something like that. And really good feet, to the point where you're thinking, why have we not seen more of this kid sooner? And kid is the operative word. He's 17 years of age, young guy, obviously got some bulking up to do, but what a talented and cultured left foot. And I don't know if he gave it away once. He gave it away at the weekend, and I noted that because he was a wee bit cheap in possession at one point on Saturday, and the defence mopped it up and it was fine. It just seemed that he took a lot on board from that, though, and he was so careful with the ball while showing a bit of flair. Little flicks here, dropping it inside, dropping the shoulder, just looking to create. He had a decent effort on goals. He played a key part in Adam Ida's goal to make it 5-1 during the week. And he will be high as a kite. He'll have taken such a lift from that. And I'm sure Brendan Rodgers and the coaching staff will have put the arm around him afterwards, and in the days that followed, maybe gone through his clips and said, that was great. Here's how you can do that even better. Here's how you can have more of an impact. And I think all of a sudden, as a fan base, we're all getting really quite excited, and you can get carried away with these things. And that that's a separate part of it. But I always, when people are talking like that, I always say, why not get carried away? Why not get excited about certain talents, whether it's youth players coming through or new signings or how Celtic are doing in Europe or different goals that we're targeting. Get excited, get carried away because that is what football is all about, and that's why we support a team, and that's why we go to the games or we watch from home or however we take in Celtic. That's what we're all in it for. So I say do get carried away whilst also trying not to put too much pressure on the young player's shoulders. But he will be desperate to play a part against St Mirren. And all of a sudden, as I say, a week ago, last Friday, he wasn't really in the picture. I think he was on the bench at Ibrox without getting any minutes. But he wasn't really in the picture, and he certainly wasn't in many of our minds as to a guy who should be getting minutes. And we've seen the other guys that have been around from a youth side of things this season, whether it's Dane Murray, who's sadly out injured for the rest of the season, Jude Bonner, who came in but disappeared quite quickly, Daniel Cummins, who looks like he's away to West Ham, Francis Turley, who seems to have fallen back down the pecking order, and all of a sudden Sean McArdle is now the guy, and the opportunity seems to be there for him. He should be in the squad tomorrow, but very surprised if he's not in the squad. And I think he'll get minutes. But as I say, if you look at the bench, Forrest, Yang, McCowan will all feel that they're entitled to minutes. There's 3 subs already. You can only play 5. Nawrocki, Trusty, do they deserve to play? Does Schlupp deserve to play? Anyone else you might care to mention? So for McArdle to get minutes tomorrow, it means a senior professional doesn't. And that's the big call for a manager. And that's why it's not so easy. We all clamour for, why these young kids not getting minutes? You've got to play them. I get that as well, and we'd all love to see more of the young players. But there's also a balance to be found, and the manager always has to try and keep his first team squad happy and keep that harmony. And that's the biggest challenge. Your challenge as a manager is not in keeping your first 11 happy, because generally, your first 11, who it is, most weeks. It's keeping the periphery players happy or keeping the squad players happy. And I don't know, just say Yar, Luke McCowan tomorrow and Sean McArdle comes on before you. Not a great feeling. There's human nature would kick in there. And as much as Luke McCowan, I'm sure, is a team player, and I'm sure he wants to see Sean McArdle do well, Luke McCowan wants to see Luke McCowan do well first and foremost. You've got to be selfish. And I think that's where the balance comes in for the manager. But from a fan point of view, we're excited. And I think and hope that Sean McArdle will get minutes tomorrow. And if he can show more of the same as to what he put in on Wednesday night, then I think we're in a really good place there. The chat is that he's got a year left on his deal just now. Celtic have obviously been frustrated by players moving on in recent times, whether that is Rocco Vata or Daniel Kelly or Ben Doak. And Ben Doak's a different situation. How do you counter it when Liverpool come calling? But you don't want to lose your best talent almost as soon as they've made their breakthrough. And the hope is that Sean McArdle sees a future for himself at Celtic. Maybe not forever, maybe he moves on, but he's a boyhood Celtic fan. He posted about that after last weekend, about how buzzing he was to make a debut for Celtic. He's now 2 games into his Celtic career, and the real opportunity to make it a third and potentially then stake a claim for a cup final place. And it shows you just how quickly life can change as a footballer. Sean McArdle might have gone into this summer with 0 first team minutes, and he might have been weighing up his options, and maybe an offer comes in for down south, and who knows what that would look like. Now, all of a sudden, there's a bit of trust there from the manager. He seems to be part of the plan. And as I say, there's every chance that he will now be part of Celtic's cup final squad. And what a quick rise that would be for a young kid who, as I say, most of us hadn't heard about a few weeks ago. So lots of excitement. Good luck to Sean McArdle. Hopefully we see him tomorrow. In terms of St Mirren, just very briefly, the game itself is certainly not a dead rubber for them. Of course, top 6, first and foremost, was, I'm sure, will have been the initial target of the season for them. And credit to Stevie Robinson, he continues to do a good job there. I think St Mirren have finished top 6 the last 3 seasons. Celtic played them in the last game of last season. Was it 3-2 with Louis Palma scoring a winner quite close to the end? But there is a possibility, an outside chance, that they can still qualify for Europe. So they're a point behind Dundee United in 5th. And basically, if St Mirren better Dundee United result, I think they get that 5th place, which gets them Conference League football. And that would be massive. So there's a real drive for St Mirren. They're not just going to turn up and join the party. Well done, Celtic, and let us do what we're doing. I think there'll be a lot on offer. It's their last game, so there's no cup final to be careful about, or playoff game, or anything at all. They can really go for it. They can leave it all out there. And I think that will give Celtic a lot to think about. However, I think the the feel-good atmosphere is around Celtic at this moment in time. I think there's so much positivity around the club. We continue to chase down records. So the 5 goals in midweek meant that it was 111 goals for the league campaign so far, equaling a record set by the Lisbon Lions in the 1966-67 season. The Lions done that in 34 games. Celtic have obviously got 38 games to do so. I don't think it's the overall record. I think there's I think 116 maybe under one of Angie's side. There's other records doing the rounds. But in terms of bettering what the Lions done, that would be something special in itself. Not to compare the groups at all, by the way, but goals are goals and records are records. And if Celtic score more than the Lions, then there's a lot to be said for that. And there's individual targets that we've spoken about. Dies Maida's on 33 for the season, and he wants to increase on that. I think at the moment, Cyril Dessers is top scorer league-wise on 16. Maida's then on 15, and Kuhn not far behind and things like that. So Maida will absolutely want to be the top scorer in the league. So there's that to chase down. James Forrest, as we know, is looking to score for a 16th consecutive season for Celtic. There's that to look for. You've got Johnny Kenny. How have I forgotten Johnny Kenny? In all my chat there, I've forgotten the man himself. How could I? I was so happy for him during the week. He's a guy who I think, I'd mentioned this with James Forrest, he's been trying a wee bit too hard, and I can understand that. He's a young guy. He's got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here at Celtic to go and do something, and, it's a huge summer for him, a huge pre-season coming up, and he'll want to let Brendan Rodgers know that he can trust him and that he can be part of the plan. But for a striker, for that to happen, you have to at least be creating assists and certainly be scoring goals when given the opportunity. And he took his goal really well the other night. So what was that, the third or fourth goal on the night? A flashing header after good work by Luke McCowan down the left-hand side. You could see the joy etched on Johnny Kenny's face, and everybody of a Celtic nature delighted for him as well. Again, like a lot of the players will do nowadays, he was on social media in the days that followed. I think his post was dreams come true. What a moment, talking about Sean McArdle and what his future might look like, and James Forrest at the other end of his career, and all the other subplots going on. But for Johnny Kenny, a young kid from Ireland, to come here, play for Celtic. Play for Celtic is one thing, to score for Celtic is another, and to potentially have a future here, that will be his burning ambition. So I don't know how I forgot him. That's the way these things go, but he will want to feature. And again, that's a challenge. Your bench is looking busy and competitive all of a sudden. I've mentioned Forrest, Young, McCowan, McArdle, Johnny Kenny, and others. And again, fans are really keen to see Sean McArdle play. I think they're really keen to see Johnny Kenny given genuine minutes as well. And I'm excited too. So hopefully he gets game time as well. Where was I? I was talking about St Mirren. I was talking about goal targets. And Johnny Kenny's played a part in those 5 goals during the week. And Celtic will be looking to go beyond that. And as I say, there's individuals, Maida, James Forrest, McArdle will be looking for his first goal for the club now. Came close during the week. Johnny Kenny will be looking to double his goal tally. Let's get 2 and see where it goes. So there's so much going on, and so much that'll be driving this Celtic side, and nothing will drive a player more than the prospect of playing in a cup final, but not just any cup final. Sound like a Marks and Spencer's ad there, not just any cup final, but a cup final that could see Celtic lift an historic 9th treble in our history. Celtic are 138 years old, give or take, and the fact that at the moment we've only got 8 trebles in that time tells you how hard it is to do, tells you how unique an achievement it is. And the fact that we're going for a 9th treble, everybody wants to be part of that, from Bojami Sinisalo right through to Johnny Kenny, and everybody in between, all the experienced guys, the less experienced guys, the new guys, the guys that have been here for a while. Everybody wants to play a part. And I think that's what will really drive Celtic on tomorrow. I'm not a massive one for the big scorelines, not too much anyway. James is often a 4-5, 6-0 kind of guy. I'm falling into the trap. I'm going 5-0 Celtic. I think you've got a Kasper Schmeichel who's now back from injury, and he'll be driven, like all goalies, driven to keep a clean sheet. And I think he's got a back four that will be doing their absolute best to protect that. And I think you've just got so much going on from a creative point of view, and so many goals coming from so many areas is the bottom line. And I just think Celtic will be so hard to stop tomorrow. St Mirren will come out and give it their all, and I think they're an honest group. And as I say, they've obviously got a target of their own, but I think Celtic will just be far too strong. I'm going to go 5-0 Celtic. Let us know, as I say, get in touch on the socials or in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, and let us know exactly what you think. But I really do think we're just in such a good position. There's such a buzz around Celtic just now, such a feel good, and I think it's all set to be a special day on the park during the 90 minutes before we then enjoy all the trophy stuff and all the celebrations afterwards. In terms of afterwards, we know what it looks like now. We've seen it for the last 3 seasons. Certainly, this is going to be the 4th title in a row. But there is a lot of chat, and it has become cliche, but it's maybe harder to get this message across to some younger fans. But please do not take this type of celebration for granted, because football can change very quickly. Who knows what's going on across the city? There's investment in Hearts. Aberdeen are ambitious, albeit they've had an up and down season. Hibs have finished strongly under David Gray. And you just never know. Football's a changing landscape at the best of times. And you've got to really enjoy these moments when they're here. Miff, I think, quoted a friend of his, Brian, on the Monday show and said that enjoy every title like it's your last. And I think that's a good way to look at it. The hope is that Celtic continue to kick on, and 4 in a row might become 5, 6, 7, and who knows beyond that. But at the moment, for the here and now, let's enjoy this title for what it is. Let's celebrate absolutely tomorrow, and then let's see what happens next week in the Scottish Cup for what could be a really special end to the season. In the meantime, from myself and the rest of the group here at the Celtic Exchange, thanks for backing the Celtic Exchange all season long. We've obviously still got a bit to go. There will be some specials coming up next week ahead of that Scottish Cup. But thanks for joining me for this one. As I say, hopefully another special day at Celtic Park for all. Enjoy yourself, whether you're at Celtic Park or watching from home, and we'll see you all again really soon.